I'm going to get started. Okay.
Right.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kimberly Ruley. I am from K Mainline. Yay. And I'm here to teach Urban Pride. Urban Pride is a course that has been here for about 3 years now. KW developed it originally as called Proud to Be KW, and now last year they did some tweaking to it, and it is now called Urban Pride. I am the rankmaker of the Ruley Group. I have a team. We are top 5 units for the year. Thank you. I'm also a KWU trainer, so I do teach other courses besides for this. I'm a mother of 3, I have twins that are 8, and I have a 14-year-old who is going into high school, which I am dealing with. I also am bringing kids for summer, which is nice. I have been on the ALC for a number of years. I was the chair of the Social Equity Task Force, turned DEI, turned Inclusion and Belonging for the last 4 years. This is the first year that I'm not going that work, but we are having an event today, so I will be long for today. So, Earn with Pride. Let me start out saying that this is a safe space. So anything that you want to talk about should not leave this room, okay? Because we value that in this community. We're going to talk about the community, but we're also going to talk about real estate, integrate with that, all right? So you can see, we talk about demographics and people who are buying and income. After we do this, we're going to play a game of Pride Jeopardy, all right? Very fun. Doesn't take us that long. So about 30 minutes on this, and then we'll go up to the Jeopardy. All right, what to ask. Great. So, learning objectives. Why do we celebrate Pride? Talk about LGBTQ demographics. Can we use this part?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. That's mine at home. Fair housing laws and our role as real estate professionals. So, what is Pride? Why do we celebrate it? Equality of all people. Equality of all people. What else?
To show that we embrace each other and that we are accepting and just more so acceptance and not having to.
Acceptance.
Yeah.
Okay. Acceptance, equality. Anybody else?
Resiliency of the community.
Resiliency of the community. Great. So, Stonewall is where it all started. Does anybody know about Stonewall? Does anybody not know about Stonewall? Great. Perfect. So Stonewall is a place in New York, and there was a riot there. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, here's one of you listening. There was a riot there in 1969. It's a gay bar in Greenwich Village. The riot, I would say, was really just the police coming into there to arrest people. And they were arresting people for just being themselves, right? So it was a safe space that got infiltrated by the police. Excuse me. There were a lot of trans folks there as well. As a matter of fact, one of the trans women that were credited for Stonewall, Marsha P. Richardson, was there that night, and there was one Latina woman, trans woman that was there that night that were both mentioned a lot when we talk about Stonewall. So the police raided, and then, of course, it became, I don't want to say a riot, but like really a big cluster of actions that day. All right, so then people no longer felt safe. So at the time, Marsha B. Johnson was 23 years old. Imagine that, being young and in this situation. Her friend, the Latina, is Sylvia Rivera, and they were both credited in a major-only uprising. So the Stonewall riots were followed by several days of demonstrations in New York, and it was the impetus for the formation of the Gay Liberation Front. The next year, in 1970, the uprising was commemorated by a Christopher Street Day Parade. is what we now know as Pride, that is celebrated across the country. In year 6, 1970, it spread worldwide. Some places celebrate in June, other places celebrate different times of the year. Pride is celebrated in Philadelphia when? June. Pride Parade was June 1st this year. And there's also other variations of it. So there is a Philly Black Pride weekend as well. That's in the end of April. You'll see it in different communities. There are different types of events. Is the Pride Parade just for those in the community? No. Anybody can go. It's a fun time for the weekend. I've been to the one, I think the biggest one I've been to was in New York. That was off the hook. Crazy. But I had a good time. All right. So in addition to celebrating Pride, there are also some other holidays. So International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia is May 17th. National Coming Out Day is October 11th, and Philadelphia does have a Coming Out Day festival, usually down by the river, Pennsylvania area. And then there's International Trans Day of Disability on March 31st. All right, so let's look at the timeline. So the Defense of Marriage Act was in 1996. That act said that marriage was only between one man and one woman. Then in 2003, was Lawrence versus Texas, that invalidated sodomy law across the United States, and it's decriminalized homosexuality in every state in the country. In 2009, the Matthew Shepard and James Burr Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act. That was signed into law as a response to the murders of those two. The measure expands the 1969 United States federal hate crime laws to involve crimes motivated by victims' actual or perceived gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. Has anyone heard of Matthew Shepard?
Yes.
Great. So you know he was brutally murdered, tortured, all because he was gay. And I like to mention his name because people really know his name more than James Burr, but it was a horrific crime. His mother is still an activist to this day. 2011, Don't Ask, Don't Tell repealed. 2015, Obergefell and Hodges. That was the state ban on marriage equality, saying that they were unconstitutional, and it instituted nationwide marriage equality. In 2020, this Boston versus Clayton County. And what that is it's extended protections against employment discrimination. Because up until then, you could still be fired for being gay. That's why it was brought up, because this gentleman was fired for his sexuality. All right, so it expanded it, saying that the protection of sex in the federal law expanded to include sexual orientation and gender identity. So, can you imagine that only 5 years ago, that you would be fired? Okay? So, the history is not that long. It's not that long ago. And now, here we go. All right, so let's look at some demographics. We're going to look at United States homeownership rates and income of buyers and sellers. So, I always find this slide very interesting. This is LGBTQ identification by generation. So you see Gen Z, Millennial, Gen X, Baby Boomer, and Silent. I want you to tell me what you think when you look at this.
So it became more comfortable to come out. Years went on.
Anybody else?
I mean, as time has gone on, I think identifying as queer or trans is becoming more acceptable and part of the conversation versus what the silent generation or baby boomers are used to. So there's a level of a safe space that has been created over the years that allows younger and younger demographics to come out, feel comfortable with things.
Right.
Additionally, the laws and things.
Yes. Two things I want to say about that. One, I think the last group that is still honestly suffering from the massive effects of discrimination are trans folks. There's a lot of people that come a long way, but on that part, not so much, unfortunately. Black trans women are like the most murdered in the United States, yes.
Is identification a legal status or is it just more of a personal?
Great, that's what I was pointing to. And you've alluded to it by saying people felt more comfortable coming out. This doesn't mean there's only 3% of people in the United States that are gay in the silent generation.
Right.
It means that they didn't suffer for it. Right? And as you go younger, people don't care anymore. Right? I gave my daughter a cell phone at the age of 12. And one of the things that I told her that comes with that is that I get to check her phone any time that I want to. And I don't hide it, I just do it in front of her face. Let me see your phone. And there are times when I've gone on there and she's not even Gen Z. I don't even know what her generation is called now.
Alpha?
Is it Alpha? Okay. And I looked at some of the chats, group chat with all of her friends. She goes to all girls school. And they're talking about what their pronouns are. Like it's no big deal. Just another conversation, right? These folks, they're not talking about that. Still to this day, there are people still closeted to this day. All right? Think of the people that serve in the military. They would never, ever. Unfortunately, things are rolling back too, because we've seen some folks and trans folks in the military having to leave. Just read a story the other day about a woman who was very upset. She dedicated her life and now back up. Unfortunately, because of some things that the current administration are doing. So we still have ways to go, but we've come a long way. All right, homeownership rates in the U.S. Take a look at those percentages. Now, what I will say is that some of this, overlaps, right? Because there's intersectionality involved. So there are people that are LGBT and Hispanic, so on and so forth, right? But if we look at it just in those categories, your general home ownership rate is 64%. White is 72%, the highest. And then the next highest, LGBT. Right? And unfortunately, some of us avoid them as if they're not worthy of home ownership, but there is a market there that everyone should pay attention to. Okay, income of buyers and sellers. So we have LGBTQ non, and then it's broken up into lesbian, gay, bisexual. Of course, this could run a gamut of other pan, asexual, there's a lot of other categories there, but anything you see here?
I would just say the median age is kind of in that, it's an older kind of age group, 34, beginning of their 40s, not so much so younger.
Mm-hmm. This is also partly about self-reporting too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of, that's a younger age for bisexual versus maybe just lesbian, gay. Excuse me.
I would say that their median income, if this is just in general, is higher than the average national household income, which I think is like 70s.
Yep. And if you look at the categories themselves, the highest category for LGBTQ is the 45 to 75. For non, it's higher, 100 to 150. Could that have something to do with employment discrimination? Possibly, right? Then we've got 150 over for lesbian, gay, and then 45 to 75 for bisexual. So it changes, right? And I think the age probably has something to do with it too. Okay. All right, LGBT renters seek LGBT friendly neighborhoods. So they fear discrimination and they seek friendly neighborhoods. More than 4 in 10 of renters fear discrimination in the home buying process, while an additional 15% are unsure. Because when they want to work with a client in the community, when I say the community, That's me avoiding my tongue tied saying the letters, okay? Has anyone worked with clients in the future? Great. Has anyone had those clients say, I want to be in a safe neighborhood? Not safe as a general safe, but safe because I am in the community. What have you done?
I just had this last week, 2 renters, both trans, and we walked around the neighborhood. Just to see if they felt comfortable, and if, do I see people who look like me, and all of this stuff. And so I really share, let's walk around the neighborhood and see what it feels like.
Okay, good, good.
I do commercial, so it was for a club, and so it was very much like security and getting a better sense of like what the attitudes were from surrounding businesses.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do the same thing for pretty much all my clients, and we went out to this particular neighborhood, we kind of sat down, discussed all the surrounding areas, but we had just coffee and kind of get a sense of how they felt when sitting outside at the coffee shop, what they saw. And then I also do, take your neighborhoods, drive around as well, and we'll go back and have a conversation on whether or not they feel comfortable within the neighborhood.
Good. Anybody else? Good. You just have to be careful with your housing, right? I've had a set of clients that were referred to me in the KW Rainbow Network, which I'll talk to you about a bit. And they were relocating from California. They had some family here, but not really enough to know enough about the neighborhood. And so one of the things they said to me, this is a lesbian couple with a set of twins, is we don't want to be in a place where we're going to feel uncomfortable or our kids are going to feel uncomfortable because of who we are. And that was really tricky for me because usually with someone that's locally just said, oh, just ride around the neighborhood a few times, go day and night, check it out, see how you feel. So what I ended up doing is I did a lot of their showings virtually. And when I did that, they asked me to go outside and pan the neighborhood. Because for them, if they saw something specific, and I'm going to be honest, they were looking for flags of a certain sort, then they were like, absolutely not. Because that was their comfort level. Just be careful. It can be easy to feel like you want to protect your clients, right? You don't want to put them in a space, but you've got to protect yourself as well. So just be careful how you do that. And it's really hard for me because I'm in the community. So I'm like, I know that they're not going to like it here, but I can't tell them that. So they have to make their own decisions. So just be careful about that. But discrimination does still exist. I would almost guarantee that trans folks are discriminated in housing big time, particularly in rental simulations. Yeah. You have someone else that owns that property and wants control of who's going to be in there. It's a building, they're worried about the other tenants. So be careful about that.
It just had that happen.
It just had happened.
Yep. And I knew it was happening. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
How are you landing on the queue? Can you remind me of the queue?
I don't want to tell you that because it's a Jeopardy question. So you gotta wait, okay? All right, so they talk about here what their level of importance was for different things. Reasonable cost, of course, is at the top for both categories, homeowners and renters. Low crime rates was second. I mean, it pretty much goes in line with the other one. But that considered to be an LGBT friendly place to live, 78% for homeowners, 84% for renters. Again, I think for renters, it was a little different depending on like renting a house where you don't have to worry about anybody versus being in a building. Right. Okay. Federal housing laws. Housing discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity is illegal. But that has not always been. Just like redlining was a thing. So it's right? In 2021, sexual orientation and gender identity discrimination were officially recognized as forms of sex discrimination under the Federal Housing Act. What does that mean? That means that those words, sexual orientation and gender identity, are not in the Federal Housing Act. the sexes, and they figure that under sex, it expands to include those other things, but still not explicit. You know where it is explicit? State of Pennsylvania has it explicitly in their fair housing law. Gender identity and sexual orientation. There we go. Housing providers are prohibited from, you can see all these things, right? These are no-brainers to us. Mortgage lending and insurance, also legal to threaten, coerce, intimidate, or interfere with anyone exercising a fair housing right or assisting others who exercise that right. You also have to be careful of how you advertise. You can't put a limitation on preference. So again, these things apply to all those categories, right, in discrimination. But we're just talking about them here. Someone asked me before, well, I don't understand how someone could be discriminated in lending. Does anyone know how? Do you know that it happens?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you think it happens?
What do you say? The form, like what information?
How are they discriminated against in lending?
Specifically with housing. Denied a loan,
Why?
like maybe a household.
They may see two same gender on the application and then say,
Give them a different rate.
Different names.
Yep. I'll share, I think he's okay if I would share this. Somebody in my office, he and his husband went to buy a property and they bought the property and then they found out, I'm trying to think, did they find out after the fact, or was it during, right before they signed, that they were given a business loan? Because they thought partners and two men meant it would be a business loan. But you're buying a house.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
No.
So was that probably a cop out? Probably.
of course.
They were given a higher rate for that. They have higher costs, but it does happen.
Is there recourse for that?
Don't think all with it.
Yeah. With the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission can conduct investigations, but the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt is very high. Like you have to prove the correlative impact of it is because of their gender identity. And you can only find out if you were to conduct investigations and subpoena internal documentation, or if someone said something, or if there's like an email chain. So to prove that would be a little bit harder. But there is a process, and I think Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission have the investigative tools to be able to do that. So if you suspect that there's discrimination, that would be the first place to make a complaint. And they will have those subpoena powers to do so.
And any fair housing organization, because there's one in Delaware County, but there's others as well. Yeah, probably it's not everybody and anybody. I want to step back. It was 2018 when the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission added sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, gender transition, transition identity, and sex assigned at birth into their therapy. In Philadelphia since 1982. Philly's been on the move there. Okay. All right. Any questions, any discussion about these things? They definitely still do happen.
What do you advise your clients to do then when they're filling out, lending documents or whatever?
Honestly, I don't advise them to do anything in particular. This is also why I like to work with people I know. Because I can dig in there behind. I'm using that word instead of what I could. Right? I can dig in them if I need to. For anything. That's what I tell my clients. You can use anybody you want, but I can touch these people. And because I give them a lot of business, you don't listen.
Right.
If it's a situation where they brought their own lender and they think something is amiss, I'm hoping that they speak up so that I can then ask the questions. Yeah. I think that's also, it's important at all times to look at your client's loan estimate, see anything that are fishy anyway, right? So that would probably be a good indicator if you see something. All right, housing non-discrimination laws. So this shows for the United States and its territories. I know that might be hard to see, excuse me, The dark green is state law explicitly prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. The shaded lines state explicitly interprets existing prohibition on sex discrimination to include sexual orientation and or gender identity. See, Pennsylvania is one of those. The lighter green, state law explicitly prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation only. And then the yellow, no explicit prohibition, excuse me. This was in 2024, something could have changed. Are we surprised that it's the Bible Belt?
I was just about to say, it looks
Yeah.
a lot like the Civil War.
Yeah.
It looks a lot like that now.
They got little and also the territories are also in that
Yeah.
same state. So
What's Arizona? What is that?
Arizona is like Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Explicitly interprets the existing prohibition on sex and discrimination to include sexual orientation and or gender identity. The interesting thing is that if you don't think that your clients are looking at some of this stuff when they're moving here from another state, you would be wrong. They're looking to see where they want to move to, what is considered safe, what is considered diverse. I've had clients ask me, well, how diverse is it? Tell me about the schools. Tell you about the schools. I can tell you, I can point you in a direction to look at that information, right? But they're looking at this too. So keep that in mind. All right, here we go. More about discrimination in the lending process. Same-sex couples, 73% more likely to be denied a loan. Loan approval rate 3 to 8% lower than heterosexual couples. They pay more in fees and interest. Less than 0.5%, but when you add all those pennies up, it's a lot of money, right? So it does happen. And someone else asked me more about that. And I said, you know, like in the Black community, your name could give you away. They could easily do that, right? So in the gay community, if they see, they ask you for your ID, yes, your ID looks one way, and you're presenting as another, and your pronouns look different than what your ID is, giveaway.
Yep.
So it's kind of easy for that to happen. All right, so our role as real estate professionals, be learning based, focus on inclusion, support organizations that promote home ownership. So today you're here to be learning based, so thank you for that. Continue to do that. Every time I get like right here, besides that, right? Okay. Organizations. So I'm gonna start out here. Agent of Distinction is a certificate that you can get through Keller Williams. I have it myself. It is a great learning opportunity. Start off with taking unconscious bias, and the color of real estate, which are both free. This one is a paid course, but it's self-guided. And I thought that I was very DEI, aware, and I still learned it. I still learned some things that I was not aware of about different cultures. So I recommend that. And when you do that, get a little badge, you can put on your signature. Inclusive leadership, excuse me, is a class that is taught by Julia Lachey-Rell, that talks about diversity in hiring and hiring practices. And then the Alliance is the LGBTQ plus Alliance. It's a real estate organization, and they have an ally certification course that anyone can go through. So don't feel like you have to be a part of the community to actually be a part of the community.
So our Mon Framer, y'all know Mon, they're actually the president of the Eastern Pennsylvania Alliance.
Nice.
They have the event tomorrow at Frankly Brandy's at 6 o'clock. If people want to come out, they're bringing together another chapter to come to this Eastern PA chapter, which is like 1 year in existence.
Okay.
So Mon's great, and they every year in May or June they just had their LGBTQ symposium. So they do congressional no business. So last year I went, this year they had it during World Pride area, Myanmar, it was the beginning of June. So they go to Congress and advocate for their policy platforms, and also the SOGI data plan, which is the sexual orientation and gender identity. And they have like a toolkit and a bunch of things. So if you go on their website, you'll be able to like pull a lot of data, a lot of toolkits, information sheets, things like that. So there's a lot of information out there through the alliance. They have 35 chapters, 8,000 members. So it's pretty extensive throughout the country. And they're all interconnected. So like if you want to refer someone to another state, they're all, there's like a referral network, kind of like ways.
Okay. Good info. Housing Alliance, excuse me. All right. Their course as of last year, the Ally course was only $75, so not bad. And for the Asian distinction, you can just look those up in Command Net. Okay. You can take a look at it. All right. Inclusive language. Way of communicating to ensure that all people are respected, needed, and valued. Pronouns, titles, honorifics, using someone's correct pronouns is an important way of affirming their identity and a step in using inclusive language. And there are inclusive images and commands. Now that we're partnering with Canva, there's 10 million inclusive images in there. When you're doing your presentations, I just updated my virus presentation and I was very specific of the images that I was using. I wanted to make sure I had someone from just about every community, right? Major community in that. So keep that in mind because you may attract somebody who otherwise thought maybe you weren't working with it, right? I remember going to Target a couple years ago and I saw that they had a card for Father's Day for 2 dads. And I was so impressed with it that I posted about it, and I was loving Target so recently. But it's another thing. It's another thing. I've been there months. All right, they're hurting me too. They were like, right now, anyway. But what I want to say about pronouns is, it's really not. People make it seem like it's such a difficult thing to call someone what they ask to be called. My name is Kimberly. I often have people say, oh, hey, Kim. And I'm like, my name is Kimberly. Just what I want to be called. It is no different from someone and their pronouns. If I ask you to call me Jeffrey, then you better be calling me Jeffrey. Because that is what I prefer to be called. And I'm not going to answer that way. So it's really not that difficult. If you are unsure of what someone's pronouns are and you feel like you are saying something incorrect, just ask. I almost want to invite your head off the first time. I mean, on the 10th time, if you keep calling me he, and I'm like, I said she, I'm gonna have a problem. Disrespect, right? So, it's not as easy. Don't be like. Okay. Avoid assumptions of gender in conversation. How may I help you, sir? This is how may I help you. He is here for his appointment. The applicant is here for their appointment. I stopped saying guys because everyone's not a guy, right? So I like the word y'all or folks. But I have also changed my language. I also changed it when I do listing descriptions. I have not for years used his and her closets. Have not. I'll say 2 closets are great for 2 people. You know, like I don't use his and her sinks or things like that. I'm very inclusive with my language. Because I don't want, not only do I don't want to offend anyone, but I want people to feel welcome in the home that I'm listing, right? All right, so we talked about the Alliance. The Rainbow Network. So Keller Williams has a rainbow network of, I don't know how many agents are in the group at this point. We refer billions of dollars in business every year between each other. And sometimes that's because the client themselves is in the community and wants to work with someone in the community. I've seen people post in some of the mainstream groups I have a lesbian client and they would like to work with someone that is lesbian or gay. Who do you know? And the vitriol that happens in those groups is crazy. Oh, yeah, yeah. And I get, like people feel like it's discriminatory. It's not that the client is asking for that, right? And I'm just putting a call out there and letting them decide. But yeah, it was enough to write down a couple names.
You don't mind me asking, so a couple of times that people think like you might not want to work with their community or whatever, like, do you think like people as agents like just come off as like, like judgmental or not like, like not, for lack of a better way to put it, like you think it's something that you're doing as an agent to make them like uncomfortable? Or is it really like a thing? I'm sorry for this, I'm sensitive that like people who are, like let's say like I don't know, like whatever they want to be like, just feel more comfortable with like, is that like a thing or is that like something you can do to make it like?
I think that's a thing across every demographic, honestly, right? But I also think that people work with who they like and trust, regardless of the demographic. So I think that it's a nuanced question, because it's partly who you present yourself to be, what your language has been, if they believe that your affiliation with certain folks or political leanings, and they take that as meaning, and that's not necessarily true, but they're working from experience.
I have a question because I did sales before this for the past 5 years. Like I worked with all sorts. I was out in LA, so like I had everybody in like the entire spectrum. Like nobody's ever told me like, hey, like I don't feel like whatever. Like you have somebody like I never heard that actually. Like, do you like? I feel like it'd be weird if I was like, trying to tell somebody like, hey, like, do you want to work with somebody of member of your community? Like, I don't know.
I don't think you should ask that.
Hasn't really come up.
I think if someone says it, that's one thing. But I don't think if someone approaches me and is like, "Oh, you want to buy a car? Yeah. Oh, you know what? I think
that
want
sounds
to work
weird,
with."
right?
Yeah.
That's like they're trying like.
Yeah. I think also that's fair housing, honestly.
I have a background as a therapist, and so many therapists buy in the city, and my team lead will oftentimes assign them to me because there's a connection, and so that just helps build a relationship sometimes and so that's just like even outside of any of this.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's helpful to have like a commonality.
Yeah. The couple that got referred to me, who was a lesbian couple that had twins, we did not know all that.
Yeah.
Like I just raised my hand for a referral, but that then connected me, bonded me with them a lot more, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I think people like to work with who they like to work with, who have commonality, period. I just think that, I don't know, I think for me, I get a vibe. Like I've been with clients and I've been in appointments or I've been somewhere and they're like, oh, you have kids? Oh, their father, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Or they say, oh, is your husband, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes, depending on the vibe I get from them, I just say, And other times I'm like, I don't have a husband. And I leave it at that, right? Eventually, my clients get to know me well enough to know my background and my, who I love and all that stuff. But I don't volunteer it because I still have a fear of discrimination in that way.
That's unfortunate.
It is. But I also have a fear of discrimination being a woman. And I also have fear of discrimination being black. So I got the trifecta going, right? But we do the best we can. So the Rainbow Network is a great network. They have Rainbow Camp before Mega Camp, and they have Rainbow Reunion before Family Union. It's a nice big group. And I normally would wear my shirt, but I decided to wear my mainline shirt that we had from last year that has the gold flag on the back. And this flag that you see is like kind of the mainstream, excuse me, but Philadelphia, I forget what year that was, it's been a few years, added the black and brown.
That is 2018.
2018. Added black and brown, and then pink and blue was added as well for bisexual, trans, black and brown folks. So, all right, questions? make sure I covered everything. Yeah.
I guess, can I just say one thing?
Yes.
One of the groups that I think intersects, a lot with the LGBTQ community is the poly community, or the polyamorous community, so people who, are in relationships with more than one person. I have a really big client base who are poly, and so I just like, when we're thinking about people who are different or who are not used to working with, I just like to bring that group up.
Yep. They're not in the alphabet, but
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And I would assume that there's some different considerations when working with that.
Yeah. So,
Right, you seem like a total therapist. Like when I see therapists, you know the way you're dressed, I just see it. I feel like I'm sitting by a therapist. Is it software?
I'll ask you all the questions.
All right,
One
moving
is enough for
on.
We were talking earlier about the attacks on trans people. Like, trans people are under attack. Like, the entire LGBTQ community is under attack, and even though there's more social and cultural acceptance, a lot of politicians use the LGBTQ community and trans folks and women as like wedge issues in culture wars to drive political agenda. So that's why it all happens in tandem. The overturning of Roe versus Wade and reproductive and equal rights aligns with the attacks on trans folks when it comes to like the bathroom bills, like the military, gender affirming care. So, and then also the attacks on DEI, the attacks on minority communities, the attack on immigrants. These are all happening in order to uphold white supremacy and power structures in the United States that perpetuates this meritocracy that like white people are supreme and better than all of the minorities. And so it's really important to build coalitions, and thank you all for being here. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm gay. And so in June, like I feel like it's Pride Month. It's also my birthday yesterday too.
Hey.
So it's like such a great it's upstairs. I have companies upstairs. So it's important to build intersectional alliance. That's why the LGBTQ real estate group is called the Alliance, because we're only able to pass this legislation because of allyship in the United States. So like, yeah, thank you for all of your allyship. There's a lot of things happening in Philadelphia when it comes to LGBTQ rights. I'm part of a political action committee that works to elect pro-LGBTQ candidates. So we have our first lesbian city councilwoman, Rula Dow. We have people that are being elected to office across the state of Pennsylvania. We have a leadership pipeline. So if you know anyone that wants to run for office, whether that was you or not, there's organizations that can support. And there's organizations in Philadelphia like the Way and Way, LA, Liberty City. Philadelphia has a lot of resources for LGBTQ people, so I would promote all of that. I also have some rainbow flags upstairs, so feel free to grab a cupcake and a rainbow flag. Happy Pride, everyone.
I wanted to add, that, just made me think about that. There is a, senior LGBTQ plus living, complex called the John B. Anderson, sincerely.
John C. Anderson.
John C. Anderson Art History. It is, talking spruce. It is not exclusive because they can do that, but it is a welcoming LGBTQ plus senior living facility. I would assume that everybody there probably is, right? But from what I understand, it's hard to get into because it's occupied up, but it makes them feel comfortable in their senior years, especially when it's only 3% of them coming out, right? Yes.
I will throw something out there, like back on what you said. I'm sorry to create a name, but you said that with the current global climate and everything. I thought this for a while, and just my personal opinion. I think people are just scared. Like America's predominantly like a straight white country, like the way it was built, and now we're having like all sorts of different people, and people are like, expressing themselves how they want. And I think people are scared that people are different. That's what's driving all this hate, like the whole anti-immigrant policies and the bathroom bans and this. Like, the people that used to be the majority are slowly becoming the minority. Like people are hella different out here, and there's a giant spectrum. Like I love it; it's great, but people are scared that like there's not a lot of people like them anymore. Not as many. Like they're scared
That kind of ties into what I was gonna say, and ironically enough, I was thinking of the movie Philadelphia, right? Which when I was growing up, I'm dating myself a little bit, but was like eye-opening in the sense of like healthcare and healthcare discrimination, within the community. Do you guys feel like it's gotten better when it comes to healthcare discrimination? Or-
Absolutely not, because we had argument. They always, they act like women in general, like our pain tolerance is so high because we push out babies, they think nothing hurts us. And if you're like a black woman, Middle Eastern woman, you know, different faith, whatever, it's worse. They literally treat you like you're not human and like, or you're complaining, or they blame it on our emotions and stuff like that. So even just between, and it was like, you men get baby by the doctors. They will throw so much drugs at you and so many things to try to make you comfortable. Meanwhile, we go in there and they literally will have to push the baby out. Oh, but you want some pain meds for that? Like, or we get procedures still done on us today by our OBs that we should be local anesthesia at best or we put under for, and they do it with us wide awake, no drugs, nothing.
Yeah, it's actually written to some medical folks that black people don't have the highest pain tolerance.
Yeah.
Has a high pain tolerance, and so if we complain about certain things, they don't, like how women, a heart attack is a big thing in women. Well, if I go right now to the ER and say I have chest pain, there's a chance that someone just gonna go it off. Just chest pain is probably gas, and not listening to me, right? And so there's been a lot of talk about that, I think, in the community of women. That says when someone goes to doctor and the doctor, you make a complaint and they wipe it off or brush it off, but you say, can you note that in my file? Yeah. Because then, what do you think they're going to do?
They're definitely gonna look into it. It's malpractice.
That's medical malpractice.
Right.
When you do have a heart attack, it's not emotional anxiety. They'll ask you the most inappropriate questions too, like, do you think of your husband?
No.
But
So, but I think in the community, yes, the issue still persists. Absolutely. There's not a treasure trove of doctors that are loud and proud that they're, going to help. My PCP, I went there one time, and they all had rainbow flags on their ID badges, and I was like, a little safer, right? Because it wasn't just, oh yeah, I will help you out, and it was a manifestation of it out and proud. So, but yes,
Was any center founded on
so
well, I'm not sure, but probably specifically for the community. Yeah.
so
Oh.
that's all I said.
Yeah, so taking a little bit of a different topic, obviously, and for good reason, if someone asks a real estate agent, how are the schools, or what's the crime statistics, things like that, we can't talk around that. What is the best practice if you're working with a queer couple that says, is this a safe area for us? Is this neighborhood friendly to the queer community, things like that?
I can't answer that. It's my honest response. I can't answer that. But what I can tell you is, let's look at the community at large. Let's see what's here, what's there. Let's drive around. Let's see what's going on in the specific block or neighborhood that we're in. It's I just now. I don't want my map to do it. So I had a client before that he was an investor and he wanted to buy a property, but he didn't want to be in an area that seemed to be drug infested, right? And I could never say anything to him, even though I knew some of these properties based on price range, right? So instead, when we came outside, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all the people over there. Yeah, I'm supposed to like porn activity without saying it, right? And whether he picked it up or not was his thing, but I still would, even in that situation, say, I can't tell you that. What I can tell you is that down the street is this, and this, and this, and this neighborhood has a private net every year, and those are the type of things that because even though I know the answer, I'm not putting myself in that much.
You're
I
going
was a family member, I'll be honest. I'm like, don't take my real estate balls. And let's talk to your cousin and tell you that you're not my property. That's my cousin, right? You're my blood. I wouldn't do that.
Well, we're gonna expose ourselves to liability if we guarantee any level of security, safety, comfort for anyone in any block or neighborhood, because we don't know house to house what the environment is like. So you have to put the due diligence on them to be able to conduct their own discovery, so that if something does happen afterwards, they can't be like, but you said I was gonna be safe here. And then if we are steering, which is illegal, them to particular neighborhoods based on perceived conceptions of safety, security, cultural sensitivity, then we are not doing our job as objective, neutral, realtors that's guiding them through that process of home buying. But like Kimberly stated, mentions those environmental factors, have them come multiple times, see if there's flags in the neighborhood and blocks. Still doesn't guarantee them safety, but at least like we've done enough where the emphasis is on them to make that determination for themselves. So
I also say, do you have family pets around here? Ask your friends, ask your coworkers, what do they think? Cause I'm gonna say. Even a couple that I've had, they sell in media, and when I knew that's what they were targeting, I was like, oh, then let me tell you all the stuff that happens in media. And then I gave them the rundown, and then they felt like, oh, this feels like what we're looking for. We're family oriented, doesn't feel like it would be an issue. And my sex doesn't even. You know what I mean? So yeah.
he has a house in it.
Okay, if you don't mind, before we get to Jeopardy, can you do me a solid and give me an evaluation? Because eventually, maybe I may work towards master faculty and I need 300 evaluations total. Master faculty is a step above. As a master faculty person, you can teach any class right now, or certain class I can teach. So.
Our region is greater than Pennsylvania.
Yes, it is.
Oh, sorry.
That's actually, it should be in person, I'm sorry.
It should be in person?
In person.
How many evaluations? But
I'm I don't know. I'm probably only up to like. It's
The course is not in the drop down list, so you're gonna scroll all the way to the bottom.
So, and what's the name of it?
Earned with pride.
Thank you. Does everybody have the code? Cause I'm gonna switch on to that.
Yes. It says please enter course name.
Yeah, so you gotta do the not and drop down list and then you gotta type it in. 'Cause for whatever
Okay.
reason,
Gotcha.
it's not drop down, even though it's the version. Are you planning to? Sure. Okay. All right. Let's see.
Tess and I have the same birthday.
Oh, okay.
Gemini twins.
All right, so 2, 4, 6, 7. 2, 4, 6. All right. So this side of the room. Just looks like more people. Okay, so many more. This side of the room is going to be team 1. This side of the room is going to be team 2. Okay. And typical Jeopardy. Gotta answer it correctly. Do you know how to answer Jeopardy?
Yeah.
What is? If you don't say what is, you cannot get points. All right. So I'm gonna start with team 2, since you have one less person. We're gonna just go around as you all pick which category you want. All right, I'm plays exactly like Jeopardy. I play this first time. All right, so
I'll do LGBTQIA plus celebrities for 300.
stand-up comedian, actor, and writer whose career spans 3.5 decades. She won a Primetime Emmy Award for her work on The Chris Rock Show as a writer in '99 and lives in the suburb of Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh.
You just said it.
Who is one side?
Thank you.
You can't say it just
There's one on this side of the road.
Yes, your team picks and your team answers. Well, your team picks on the other.
Well, the way that I did it the last time is your team picks and your team answers, only because I can't see who's doing what. So,
The question.
just a plan. All right. Let me move this.
Here. I'll make it go away forever.
No, it's fine. That's fine. All right. What's on sites?
How do we go out?
There we go. Gentleman over here. Yes.
Growl, 300.
Unscrabble for 300.
Please feel.
Is this so wordy?
What is,
Yes, it's wrong. No, we didn't say
We
it.
didn't
What
say
is support?
but it's support. Well, it's
You got it wrong.
He had it wrong.
We didn't say what it
All right, so now I'm coming over here.
is.
Yes.
Alright, let's do a pride 101 for 100.
Pride 101. Gay Pride is celebrated every year in what month?
What is
What
she?
is-
Yeah.
No, you can answer it. Yeah.
History. History. This is the country's oldest LGBTQ plus bookstore located on Pine Street in Philadelphia.
Oh, and it's
You can go.
I know, me too.
Say what is first.
And
Oh,
What is Giovanni?
good job.
Thanks for it.
he said shit
I-
in another room.
I forgot to go.
Giovanni's room. I went to Giovanni's room in like the first year I came out, and I was on the street looking at it like, I want to go there. I'm not sure. And I happened to be able to go and see Ethan Harris.
Oh, yeah.
Know who he is?
Absolutely, I've read a few of his books.
Yes, he was
Very
there.
eye-opening, yeah.
First day I went, he was there.
Yeah.
Book signing. I had him sign my book. He was a Black gay author. He has a line of books, all excellent.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's an excellent writer.
Absolutely.
He passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
All right, since you stole,
Let's do acronyms for 300.
all right. A person who experiences sexual, romantic, physical, and or spiritual attraction for members of all gender identities expressions.
What is pansexual?
Job.
What was sad news?
Sapiosexual is attracted to the intellect. All right. Behind you.
History for 500.
Between 1993 and 2013, this United States policy did not allow gay men and women to openly serve in the military.
What is that's no tell?
Job. All right, I'm gonna come back over here.
Maybe that's how it.
Who's next?
Let's do celebrities for 4.
Celebrities. This man popularized drag queens and drag competitions and brought it to modern media.
So it's for
Oh, is RuPaul?
Yeah.
You better walk on that slide. If you don't love yourself, I'm gonna have animals.
Can we do Unscrabble for 500?
Yes.
What is acceptance?
Yes.
No.
You like playing the Scrabble words, don't you?
I have an English degree or two.
There we go. All right, let me give you all one more for this first size.
let's do acronyms for 500.
The full acronym is LGBTQIAAP. Try your hand at naming each identity in order.
What is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer? Queer
Can I
again?
have one? No.
Diagram. You can tell me that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Intersex, asexual,
What's the other Q?
8. Oh, I was gonna say sexual, yeah.
what's the other?
Oh, yeah. Move it over here. Go ahead.
Androgynous,
Essentially,
Do I have to do?
Yeah,
Yes.
now you gotta go off.
Start with.
Yeah.
What is lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, aromantic, pansexual?
That is bullshit, I give that. I identify as an ally.
Yeah. Allies, sorry.
So you give
Go
them
back.
No.
Buddy.
The game Allison, but you have them, I don't even mind.
Question it.
All right, I was going over here next anyway. It's next.
Let's do celebrities too.
This popular Gen Z rapper came out after his critically acclaimed hip hop country hit Old Town Road.
Who still allows that?
Yes.
Take my horse to the hotel.
All right. Let's do celebrities live. Although he never openly proclaimed himself as gay, his famous 90s basketball player was celebrated for his extreme gender expression, wax colorful hair, some of the best defensive rounds of NBA.
Come on.
Yeah.
And here's some boy.
but I already went.
You already said it? Okay, Courtney? Okay.
Unscrabble for a. What is diversity? What is?
It's him, he might not.
Wow. Okay.
I'll do that.
Goodness.
Okay, let's see now, over the side, Pride 101, 200.
I like the shoes.
Thank you.
Pride events advocate for this, for the LGBTQ plus community.
Acceptance, what is acceptance? Support, what is support?
Ah.
What is love? Love, you gotta do love, come on, let's do it.
Equity.
Y'all got it, y'all got it. And then-
Oh, they did it.
It's a mix of all things.
Equal rights, equal rights.
They said equity, that's different.
Equality.
Equality, equity.
Sorry.
But he said acceptance, support, love.
I mean, for him. So for him.
So.
All right, 1, 2, okay, go ahead.
Ride 101 for, you know.
What riot, which eventually led to the creation of Gay Parade as we know today, took place in New York City in 1969 and was led by trans activist and icon Marsha P. Johnson. Stonewall. Thank you. I was gonna say, y'all don't get that right. I don't know what I just did for now. All right, back over here.
500, 501.
True or false? Only LGBT
on.
participate in pride events.
What is false?
What is false?
Anyone.
Thank you, you 500 push.
I
That
know.
was so hard. That was definitely worthy. 100.
No. First.
501.
In 2007, the city of Philadelphia installed 36 rainbow street signs in the area bounded by 11th and Broad Streets and Pine and Walnut Streets to honor the history and diversity of the area known as.
What is the neighborhood?
Yes. Does everybody know where that is?
No.
Yes.
Okay, let's make sure.
What is it again?
I mean, false.
acronyms 400.
This really should be a 5-minute question.
Have to go.
It's right here, right down the road.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say you can't look at click here.
Okay.
Okay, but what is,
It's on his phone.
I'm gay, I don't
Great.
what is professionalism? RESPCT.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Integrity, diversity, and I don't think it's equity or equality. Excellence.
Alright, I think that's clear.
So what is it?
What is protecting the rights, identity,
Okay, integrity.
Promoting?
we all
How is everything a noun and then the first one a verb? What is the promotion?
I know.
Are you sure? Discipline.
I have never heard of it myself, to be honest.
What is your pride is and proud?
Huh?
We call it pride is and proud, and proud to yourself. That's
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, okay, first stuff is,
Student history 400.
history 400. This is the first state in the USA to pass a Don't Say Gay bill in March of 2022. Bonus point if you can tell me what it is.
What is California?
No. What is
Florida.
Florida? Can you tell me what it is?
It is okay, so it does not allow for educators in the school district to promote any curriculum, or to ask, or to like talk about their sexual orientation as a teacher or educator.
Yes, specifically was for K-3, but it did expand into other areas, and that is indeed Florida. I believe though there's still legislation on that. All right, next.
Can we get unscrambled this one?
Yes. Whoa. Oh. What is it?
That one messed me up, good job.
Yeah, you like, come on.
I just got the whole time, how would you say that?
Teachers. He's messing me up.
Sorry. Right. Yeah.
I'll get your email.
Mr.
Under what president was gay marriage legalized in the U.S.?
Who is Barack Obama?
Correct.
Yes.
Oh, that was pretty recent.
All right. Behind you.
Let's do celebrities. Hold on.
This man is the lead singer of the popular 70s band Queen.
It was
Passed
Frank
away. Yep.
Sorry. Let's grab one.
Unscrabble.
What is pride flag?
Yes.
Oh, shit. So bad.
Okay, let's see. History 100.
In 2015, the Supreme Court's landmark decision in Obergefell legalizes throughout the 50 states.
What is that?
What is gay marriage? Okay. Yeah. It's marriage, honestly. And sidebar. So I had a civil union in New Jersey in 2008, and then the state started like little by little legalizing. And so I went to DC and got a marriage license, and then Delaware became, and so then I went to Delaware and got a marriage license. And then this happened and everywhere, and then I got a didn't matter.
It's like what I was thinking, like, you should it at the last second, you think it's gonna be like a good story. We're having to work this bad.
I don't know.
I know it's happy for me a lot though. I'm like, oh, good, I'm so happy for you. I'm like, oh shit. Never mind.
This term actually found as a full acronym is often used as an umbrella term for the entire community. Need that term,
Yay.
but it's queer. But it's queer. That's what the young lady's asking me, not that tell her. So. All right, we got one more. The T. Trans for this. What is trans? What is trans?
You crushed it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's.
Thank you everyone for coming, for spending your time with me, for being open and willing, and for being an ally. I appreciate you. I hope you have a little bit of fun, additional learning, and go to the rest of your day. Thank you.